He has failed. He hasn't.
We have to start with Rachel Reeves. Much as it pains me to do so, we have a few clips of Rachel Reeves.
This has been a very, very bad week.
You won't believe what just happened. In a stunning turn of events, the UK Supreme Court has just stripped Chancellor Rachel Reeves of her secret fortune, live on national television. The very architect of the nation's most punishing inheritance tax policies has been caught red-handed, shielding her own wealth from the very taxes she imposed on millions of hard-working families. The hypocrisy is staggering. While ordinary Brits were grappling with hefty inheritance tax bills, Reeves was quietly securing her assets through offshore accounts and complex trusts. But justice has finally caught up with her. This is the story of a public official who preached fairness but practiced deceit, and how her empire of lies came crashing down in real time. Rachel Reeves ascended to power with promises of economic justice and fairness. She positioned herself as a champion of the working class, vowing to overhaul the inheritance tax system to target the wealthy elite. Her policies, however, told a different story. Under her leadership, the inheritance tax threshold was frozen at £325,000, a figure that failed to keep pace with the soaring property prices across the UK. This decision meant that families with modest estates suddenly found themselves facing substantial tax bills upon the death of a loved one. The inclusion of pensions and family businesses into the taxable estate further exacerbated the financial strain on ordinary citizens. Farmers in particular were hit hard, with many forced to sell off land that had been in their families for generations just to cover the tax liabilities. The public outcry was palpable, with protests erupting across the country and petitions demanding policy reversals gaining thousands of signatures. Yet Reeves remained steadfast, insisting that her policies were designed to ensure that the wealthy paid their fair share. Behind the scenes, however, a different narrative was unfolding. Investigative journalists and whistleblowers began to uncover evidence suggesting that Reeves had taken extensive measures to protect her own wealth from the very taxes she championed. Documents revealed the existence of offshore trusts and shell companies linked to Reeves and her family. Assets were being funneled through jurisdictions known for their lax transparency laws, effectively shielding them from UK tax authorities. The revelation sent shockwaves through the political landscape. The public, already disillusioned by the economic hardships imposed by Reeves's policies, felt a deep sense of betrayal. Calls for her resignation grew louder, and pressure mounted on the government to launch a formal investigation into her financial dealings. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation between a public official and the very laws she had helped to craft. The Supreme Court's involvement marked a turning point in the saga. After a thorough review of the evidence, the court concluded that Reeves had engaged in deliberate and calculated efforts to evade the tax laws. In a landmark ruling, they ordered the seizure of her assets, effectively dismantling the financial empire she had built. The decision was broadcast live, allowing the public to witness the moment justice was served. It was a powerful reminder that no one, not even those in the highest echelons of power, is above the law. The fallout from the ruling has been swift and far-reaching. Political allies have distanced themselves from Reeves, and opposition parties have seized the opportunity to question the integrity of the current administration. The scandal has also reignited debates about the fairness and effectiveness of the UK's tax system, with many calling for comprehensive reforms to prevent similar abuses in the future. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. The actions of Rachel Reeves have left an indelible mark on the nation's political and economic landscape. The Supreme Court's ruling didn't just expose Rachel Reeves, it tore open a web of financial manipulation that had been carefully constructed over years, hidden behind polished speeches and staged photo ops. As the court delved into Reeves's financial history, forensic accountants and legal experts uncovered a sprawling network of offshore trusts, shell corporations, and interlinked assets stretching from the Channel Islands to the Caribbean. This wasn't a case of simple tax avoidance. It was a sophisticated operation, meticulously designed to move money beyond the reach of HMRC and shield millions in wealth from inheritance tax and public scrutiny. What's most shocking is that while Reeves was delivering public addresses urging British families to pay their fair share, she had, behind closed doors, orchestrated the exact opposite for herself and her inner circle. Among the most damning revelations were documents tied to a Cayman Islands trust, set up under a family alias, one that held property titles, equity stakes in private firms, and luxury assets, including a discreetly purchased French villa. The trust had been created shortly after Reeves first assumed a senior Treasury position, and investigators believe its purpose was clear from the outset. to ensure that any increase in her political influence would not come at a financial cost. Transactions funneled through this entity were designed to appear legitimate, masked under layers of corporate secrecy. For years, the operation ran undetected, until whistleblowers inside a London-based financial firm tipped off authorities, citing suspicious transfers and unusually protected client files marked with Reeves's coded initials. The resulting investigation didn't stop with Reeves herself. As the trail expanded, investigators found links to influential donors, former political aides, and even foreign consultants, many of whom had helped build and maintain this fortress of secrecy. Communications recovered from encrypted emails showed detailed strategies on asset movement and plausible deniability in case of discovery. There were even drafts of statements prepared in advance, suggesting Reeves knew this scandal might one day surface and had prepared fallback narratives to deflect blame. But no amount of rehearsed statements could counter the weight of evidence now in the hands of prosecutors and judges. What made the situation more volatile was that this financial empire was not just meant to benefit Reeves, it was structured to survive her. Trusts and holding companies were arranged to pass control to relatives and longtime allies in the event of legal trouble. The Supreme Court, however, recognised this tactic and ruled not only to freeze Reeves's assets, but to unravel the entire chain of wealth distribution. This decision marked one of the most aggressive legal moves against a serving British political figure in modern history. It set a precedent that could now put other politicians under intense scrutiny, particularly those who have similarly preached austerity while living opulently in the shadows. The political consequences were immediate. Members of Reeves's own party, already nervous about dipping poll numbers, began to panic. Several issued carefully worded statements condemning financial dishonesty, yet notably avoided mentioning Reeves by name. A silent admission of the deep fracture now running through the Labour leadership. Meanwhile, rival parties pounced on the opportunity, branding Reeves a symbol of elite corruption and Labour as fundamentally dishonest. Public reaction has been equally fierce. Social media erupted with rage, with trending hashtags calling for criminal charges, electoral reform, and even the seizure of party funds found to be tied to questionable donors. Protests erupted outside Parliament and Labour headquarters, with banners mocking Reeves's slogans and demanding immediate resignations. The damage is now irreversible. Rachel Reeves is no longer seen as a principled economist fighting for the working class, but rather as a symbol of double standards and institutional decay. Her carefully crafted image has crumbled. What remains is the raw truth. Behind the smiling facade and noble-sounding tax policies was a carefully concealed empire built on deception. The Supreme Court may have stripped her of her fortune, but it also unmasked a deeper rot that may take years for British politics to recover from. As the dust settles from the Supreme Court's thunderous ruling, the political tremors have only begun. Within the Labour Party, panic has erupted into chaos. Senior members convened late-night emergency meetings, desperately trying to contain the fallout. But for many insiders, the writing is already on the wall. Rachel Reeves's downfall has triggered an irreversible implosion at the heart of Labour's leadership. Party donors are pulling back, constituency chairs are receiving calls from enraged members, and the once tight grip on media messaging has shattered into defensive deflections. For the first time in years, Labour's high command is no longer operating from a position of strength, but from one of pure survival. And the cracks aren't just political, they're deeply personal. Former allies of Reeves have gone silent. Others are anonymously leaking damning internal memos to the press. In one shocking leak, a confidential email revealed that multiple party officials had previously raised serious concerns about Reeves's financial entanglements, but were told to stay quiet for the sake of party unity. That phrase, now haunting every Labour corridor, suggests complicity that could stretch beyond Reeves alone. This isn't just about one MP's secret fortune anymore. It's about how many others knew and how high up the silence went. Whispers are growing louder that key shadow cabinet members may soon face investigations of their own. As journalists dig deeper, a chilling pattern is emerging. A culture of calculated ignorance and deliberate shielding within Labour's top ranks. With every passing hour, it's becoming clear that this scandal is not isolated. It may be systemic. Meanwhile, the opposition is unleashing its fury. Reform UK, emboldened by the outrage, is dominating headlines and social media feeds. Nigel Farage and Richard Tice have seized the moment with fiery speeches and brutal commentary, accusing Labour of betraying the British people. They claim to stand for fairness, Farage thundered at a recent rally, but they've been robbing you blind behind closed doors. Clips of the speech have gone viral, and Reform's surge in the polls has startled even their own strategists. Conservatives too are shifting gears, pushing hard on anti-corruption platforms and demanding immediate parliamentary inquiries. The pressure is mounting from every direction, and Labour's leadership is crumbling under it. The public is not watching this unfold quietly. Outrage has boiled into street protests, with demonstrators calling for Reeves' resignation, criminal prosecution, and even the resignation of Starmer himself for failing to act sooner. Outside Labour headquarters, a crowd of protesters shouted "Fraud Labour out!" while hurling printed copies of the court's ruling into the air like confetti. Inside, party officials appear paralysed, unsure how to move forward without triggering more damage. The press conference Starmer was expected to deliver was abruptly cancelled, further fueling speculation that Labour's top brass are overwhelmed and cornered. In Parliament, the scandal has sent shockwaves through all parties. MPs are distancing themselves, ministers are calling for emergency ethics panels, and political analysts warn that public trust in elected officials is collapsing at record speed. Reeves's former role as Shadow Chancellor has now become a political minefield. Every policy she once advocated is under renewed scrutiny, with critics questioning whether any of her financial positions were rooted in genuine belief or self-serving hypocrisy. There is a growing belief that unless the party takes drastic steps now, they may not survive the next general election. The Labour Party, once poised for a return to power, is now engulfed in one of the most explosive corruption scandals in modern UK political history. The facade of integrity has been ripped away, revealing a party struggling to preserve not just its credibility, but its very survival. And while Rachel Reeves may be the first to fall, few believe she will be the last. The shockwaves from the Supreme Court's ruling against Rachel Reeves continue to reverberate across the political landscape, setting the stage for a dramatic reshaping of Britain's political future. With Reeves publicly stripped of her secret fortune and exposed on live television, the repercussions are far-reaching, touching every corner of the Labour Party and sending ripples throughout Westminster. Starmer's leadership is now hanging by a thread, as questions swirl around his judgment, decision-making, and whether he was complicit in covering up these hidden financial dealings. The silence from Labour's highest ranks has been deafening, creating a vacuum filled by opposition voices and media scrutiny that show no sign of letting up. Within the party, the battle for control has intensified. Factions have emerged, each jockeying to distance themselves from the scandal while attempting to salvage what's left of Labour's battered reputation. Some are calling for a full purge of implicated members, demanding accountability and transparency as the only path forward. Others fear that further internal conflict will only hasten the party's collapse and are pushing for a more measured response. This internal division is playing out under intense public pressure, making it impossible for the party to present a united front. The threat of mass resignations looms large, with whispers of defections to rival parties already circulating among the political elite. Starmer's opponents in Parliament are seizing the moment with relentless attacks. The Conservatives have launched a full-scale campaign to portray Labour as irredeemably corrupt and out of touch with the values of everyday voters. They highlight the secret fortune scandal as proof that Labour leaders have long operated behind a veil of hypocrisy, preaching fairness while hoarding wealth. Reform UK, riding a wave of newfound popularity, has positioned itself as the true voice of accountability and transparency, promising voters a clean break from the old political establishment. This tripartite pressure on Labour threatens to fracture the opposition landscape and create a new political dynamic in the UK. On the public front, outrage remains high and trust in politicians is at an all-time low. Polling data reveals a sharp decline in Labour's approval ratings, with many voters expressing deep disappointment and anger over the revelations. Public protests and social media campaigns show no signs of abating, reflecting a growing demand for systemic change and a political culture that truly reflects the interests of the people. Calls for stricter regulations on MPs' financial disclosures and increased oversight of political funding are growing louder, with campaigners urging the government to enact reforms that will prevent such scandals from happening again. Legal experts suggest that this case could set a precedent for future investigations into the financial affairs of public officials, signalling a turning point in how political corruption is addressed in the UK. The Supreme Court's decision has sent a clear message that no one is above the law, no matter their rank or influence. This has emboldened watchdog groups and anti-corruption activists who are preparing to push for wider reforms and hold politicians to higher ethical standards. The ramifications extend beyond Labour, with all parties now facing increased scrutiny over their financial dealings and transparency. Looking ahead, the question remains, can Labour recover from this catastrophic blow? The party faces an uphill battle to rebuild trust and prove that it can govern with integrity. Starmer's future as leader is uncertain, with growing calls from within the party for new leadership and a fresh start. The coming months will be crucial, as Labour attempts to navigate the fallout, respond to mounting public pressure and redefine its identity in a political environment that has been forever changed by this scandal. One thing is clear, the political landscape in the UK will never be the same again. The drama sparked by Rachel Reeves' secret fortune exposure is just the beginning of a larger reckoning that promises to reshape the nation's politics for years to come. The fallout from the Supreme Court's explosive decision to strip Rachel Reeves of her secret fortune is far more than a scandal involving one politician. It signals a seismic shift in the political accountability landscape across the United Kingdom. This landmark ruling exposes deep-rooted issues of transparency and integrity within the political elite, igniting demands for comprehensive reforms that could reshape how public officials manage their finances and declare their interests. For years, the veil of secrecy surrounding MPs' wealth and potential conflicts of interest has fueled public distrust. But now, with this unprecedented public exposure, pressure has mounted on lawmakers to implement stricter laws that ensure full transparency and prevent such hidden fortunes from undermining democracy. The political establishment is grappling with the reality that the public will no longer tolerate opaque financial dealings and double standards. This case has galvanised reformist voices not only within opposition parties, but also among civil society groups, campaigners, and watchdog organisations dedicated to rooting out corruption. Proposals currently gaining momentum include mandatory real-time disclosures of MPs' assets, tougher penalties for violations, and the establishment of independent oversight bodies with real teeth to investigate financial misconduct. The ruling has set a clear precedent, sending a warning that legal immunity or political influence will no longer shield politicians from scrutiny and justice. Labour's crisis, triggered by Rachel Reeves' downfall, has exposed systemic vulnerabilities that extend beyond individual actors. It has revealed weaknesses in the party's internal governance structures, especially around vetting and accountability mechanisms. The broader question now confronting Labour and other political parties is how to restore credibility in an era where the electorate demands openness and ethical leadership. This challenge is compounded by the rapid rise of alternative political forces like Reform UK, which capitalises on voter dissatisfaction with traditional parties perceived as corrupt or disconnected from ordinary citizens. The political landscape is fragmenting, and mainstream parties must adapt quickly or risk further erosion of their support base. For voters, the exposure of Rachel Reeves' secret fortune crystallises a growing demand for fundamental change in how politics is conducted. It fuels scepticism about the motivations of elected officials and challenges citizens to scrutinise their representatives more critically. The public now expects not only promises and policies, but also a commitment to honesty and ethical behaviour as non-negotiable prerequisites for holding office. This shift in voter expectations will influence upcoming elections, candidate selections, and party strategies. Political parties must navigate a fine line between defending their members and embracing reform if they hope to regain trust and remain relevant. As the dust settles on this historic ruling, the road ahead is uncertain but filled with potential. The Supreme Court's verdict has opened the door for transformative change, but whether that change will materialise depends on the resolve of political leaders, the vigilance of civil society, and the engagement of the electorate. Rachel Reeves' scandal is a stark reminder of the high stakes involved when power and privilege go unchecked. Now more than ever, Britain stands at a crossroads, one that could lead to a renewed era of political integrity or deeper cynicism and division. The coming months will reveal which path the nation chooses. If you found this update shocking and want to stay ahead of the latest political dramas shaking the UK, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't miss a moment as we bring you every breaking story, every explosive revelation, and every twist in this unfolding saga. Share this video to spread the truth and keep the conversation alive. Your voice matters. Stay informed, stay engaged, and together we can demand the transparency and justice the public deserves.